Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. For this week's video, we'll be going through a unboxing and review of Deluxe class Cheetor. And this particular version of Cheetor is from the Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy Kingdom component of the trilogy. But he does have some very strong callbacks back to his original incarnation from Season 1 Beast Wars back in the 90s. So moving on to the second Maximal of the Season 1 Maximal team, previous one being Rat Trap. Here we have the front of the box for Cheetor, as he came packaged back in probably around 2021. Have a nice shot of his Beast mode, a shot of him in his Robot mode, and then the figure of Cheetor with the nice plastic window, albeit a little bit dusty. But I will admit I do miss the plastic window. Now, I think the video is probably going to suggest some of those blue components are a bit darker than they are, so I'll definitely call them out now. From what I can tell, it's not as dark as I would like it to be, but that's okay. We'll comment on that more as we go through the review. In terms of the back of the box, what do we have? So here we have Cheetor, Robot mode, and his Beast mode, 20-step conversion, which isn't too bad. Now he's not going to be sporting his usual weapon as he did back in the 90s. But in saying that, I do believe there are some third-party upgrade kits that will equip him with a appropriate weapon. But that's okay, we can entertain that thought down the track. So that's the back of the box. Now surprisingly enough, the artwork slash product photography suggests it should be a dark blue. But as we'll find out in a moment, that blue is not that dark. So I'll open up the box and then we can start through the review. And with everything now out of the box, so what do we have? The usual manual, which is even taller than Cheetor. Cheetor himself, his accessory, which was somewhat hidden behind his box packaging, and another one of these little novelty trading type cards. Although I would have thought it would have been something distinct and unique, but no, we get the Autobot arc once again. Which makes me wonder if there's only like 3 or 4 types of these cards. So that's the back, and there's that. So I've seen that a few times, so we'll put that away. Accessory we'll come back to. Cheetor we will come back to as well. Yeah, as for your manual. Usual manual, nothing too overly exciting. As always, there's the one little instruction as to how to attach weaponry. Not that it takes too much to figure out. Otherwise, in terms of its transformation, looking pretty standard and intuitive. Doesn't look too bad so far for the first 7 steps. As for the remaining odd steps, hopefully there will be some tabbing, which I guess we will see when I do the transformation, but so far his main forward body seems pretty okay, and his back body is probably on par with what you would expect for a 4-legged feline. Transformation definitely doesn't look too bad. I can't remember off the top of my head if some of these steps remind me of his 90s transformation sequence. I think there is some common steps. Yeah, that's pretty much Cheetor's instruction booklet. So I know I'll need that later on, but at this point in time we won't need it just yet. So before we look at Cheetor too closely, here is his weapon of choice. Now, admittedly, he does use a bit of a tail weapon, but granted, that's more Season 2 when he goes his transmetal stance. I would imagine it's some type of axe-like weapon. And in terms of how it's held, well, he just literally holds it from the tip of the tail, so it's not terrible looking, but yeah, I would have definitely preferred him to be equipped with his standard ranged weapon. Now, I have no idea if this can actually be stored in his robot mode when not in use. I mean, the answer is probably yes, but it's going to be fixed in place, so yeah, that's not great looking. So yes, don't believe that you'll be able to store that while he's in his robot mode. So that's his main weapon. We'll see more of that again once we hit his beast mode, given that it's also his tail. As for Cheetor, so in terms of colors, now I think the video will be a bit more true to form. So the blue is a bit of a lighter blue. It's not a darker blue that he's traditionally had. The Netflix version may have corrected that. I'm trying to remember if I have one. I think I do. I'll double check at some point in time, but yeah, it's unfortunate. It's definitely not a bad thing, but it would have been nice if that blue was a bit of a richer blue. Outside of that, Cheetor is predominantly that yellow look, pretty much through and through. He has all his little black dots throughout, which is pretty good. But yeah, I mean, overall, his primary and secondary scheme definitely isn't too bad, but it would have been nice if it was that darker blue. In terms of the detailing on his face sculpt, definitely not too bad at all. Even his Cheetor's face sculpt isn't too bad at all. The eyes are a little bit scary, but that's okay. But yeah, there's his face. Unfortunate he doesn't have some of his little whiskers happening, but it's not too bad. It is nice to see that he does have his I don't know if we'll zoom. He does have his Maximal logo there on the middle of his forehead. So that's the front of Cheetor, side, the back. Now these don't really lock in per se, unfortunately. His beast mode legs, so they do feel a little bit all over the place. But to be honest, I think even in his original 90s, his beast mode legs actually were part of his back, so it's not terrible kibbling. Once again, if I use B127 as my kibble scale, we're nowhere near B127. But just bear that in mind, it's not really secured in like other back kibbling has on other figures. Other side of Cheetor, top down of Cheetor. I mean, he still is relatively flat on the back. Bottom up. Will he stand on his own 2 feet? The answer is yes. Yes, he will. Okay, so we've had a look at colors. We've had a few different looks of various angles of Cheetor. Articulation. His head will definitely do a 360, but he will have a really nice amount of up and down, well, more so up than down with his head, so that will help facilitate some of that 360 because of his back collar does get in the way, so you have to hold his head up to facilitate that, but otherwise that's definitely not too bad. Now, the arms. I feel it's becoming a bit of a rat trap syndrome here. So he will not be able to do a 360 with his arms. because the parts of his beast mode, quote-unquote, shell, pretty much will prevent that. Plus, at the same time, well, firstly, his arms won't do a full 360 around. They also won't, so vertical x-axis 360. But he also won't do the alternative axis of another 360 because, well, obviously his arm doesn't face through his body. So if you pull his arm out at the blue, you can obviously go, you can do pretty much do a 180, but you will have to pull his arm out, which is unfortunate, but at least he does still have some articulation there in that shoulder joint. Now he does have, I'm not too sure what type of joint that is, but he can do a 360 at his upper arm. He will have a decent elbow bend as well, so that'll do just over 90 degrees, but it will not go backwards, and his wrist will also be able to do a nice 360 on that particular axis as well. So it does make up for some of the loss of movement because he does have that restriction in the shoulder. But yeah, it's a little bit weird that he has to pull his shoulder out. Would have been nice if he could actually move bits of that shell back. Actually, can he? Take that back, maybe he can. Okay, you can bring it out a little bit, but not enough to give him really extra movement, other than you're still needing to bring out his arms, but oh well. So that's his arms, so we've had a look at. I'll just do that with his arms. In terms of his waist, can't do a full 360 because it looks like he's going to have some stuff blocking him, but he can definitely get around, that's for sure. So he can pretty much serve that. Let's see, 90. Yeah, so you can pretty much do a 90 degree on both sides, which is still pretty good. So it does mean that for any posing and things like that, he will have some of that movement at the waist. In terms of his legs, so I'll do that again. His legs will pretty much go all the way out for the full splits, as well as go forward, but they will not go back, so he will be encumbered by parts of his back skirting, quote unquote. That's okay, you can still do a decent forward kick out, and you can obviously still do side to side. He will have a 360 spin at the upper leg, which is really good. He will have a standard knee bend, which can go a bit more forward, but you will be pushing out his beast mode leg to accommodate, so keep that in mind. So it's just an interesting placement where his beast mode leg is. They just pretty much fold up over the front of his shins. As for his awkwardly small feet, he will have some forward and back motion with them. I suspect artifacts of his transformation, but can still be useful in his robot mode. He will get a little bit of rotation inward as opposed to outward, so not the greatest for some poses. For others that'll be good because he can, I dare say, change the pivot in his ankle, although it does start looking a little bit weird because unless he has his legs really far out, like he was doing some of the splits per se, and where that would be somewhat normal. I wouldn't recommend doing that in almost any other pose. Okay, so we'll just try and reset Cheetor back into some type of look. So overall, articulation isn't too bad. He has lost a bit up here on the shoulders because of his beast mode parts, and it's unfortunate that some of his beast mode legs here and the forward shins have haven't terribly restricted his movement, but it does just make it look a little awkward. But he's definitely not the most poorest articulated figure. He's still got some decent movement here and there, and I think some of these extra 360s in the upper leg, especially in the arm where it's got at least two, does help a little bit as well. So now that we've looked at his robot mode, I will transform him, and then we can have a quick look at his beast mode. I'll comment on how well I thought the transformation was, and then I'll have some final thoughts for Cheetor. And with Cheetor now in his beast mode, so the transformation actually wasn't too bad. We do have a little bit of tabbing for some of the main body and things like that, which does work out quite nicely. Otherwise, I'd actually say the transformation into his beast mode actually was quite solid. So, and it actually doesn't look too bad. So, front of his beast mode, with his mouth open just a touch. The side of his beast mode, from the back, other side, from the top. Yes, he will definitely stand on his own 4 feet. Pause. And from the underbelly. Now, from an underbelly perspective, the top section is actually really, really nice because it's been enclosed quite nicely. It's unfortunate that from the underbelly you can see where his hands are, but it is the underbelly, so it's neither here or there. I mean, if you look at it from his side, you definitely wouldn't automatically tell that that is where his wrists/hands are. And we also have the tail now connected into his beast mode, which does work quite nicely. So, in terms of articulation, there is a little bit, but I'm also under the impression it's not supposed to be huge amounts of articulation. Now, Cheetor's mouth does open and close, which is pretty cool. So it can go that far open, well, actually can go that far open, and then can close all the way. But I will admit I do like having it open ever so slightly. Now that's interesting because in his robot mode, that lower jaw bit actually does fold back in, and part of the connection is actually inside the back of the mouth, which is cool and weird at the same time. As for his front legs, so he can definitely do a full 360 here, which is really good because of the way that the arms are done. I mean, he can also flip his arms out and do all the way like that, but yes, a little bit weird looking. But it is cool. He does have some of that movement there. He does have some more motion in the forearm, I dare say. So he does have a bit of a elbow there, which is pretty cool. And he can also move his paws top to bottom. Can also rotate it, in fact, because there is a ball socket there. So not too bad. His beast mode forelegs actually have more degrees of motion than his robot arms do. So that's that. In terms of his back legs, so he will have that type of knee join again, so you can definitely go forward and back. Once again, it's actually a bit weird that he has some nice, more fluidic motion in his joints in his beast mode. And as for his paws, front and back, and they too are also in a bit of a ball socket, so they can also do a bit of a spin as well. Now, just bear in mind, parts of his robot mode detailing do point out a little bit, so it won't be a very smooth 360. You would need to navigate around that, and I think over time you'll probably start chipping some of that blue paint off. So that was that. His tail has no articulation, I'm afraid. So, can I just do that with Cheetor? Transformation, as I said, that actually wasn't too bad. Colors wise, it's actually pretty good for his beast mode. Everything's where it needs to be. And I guess his face detailing actually isn't so bad now. It's just unfortunate that he does have some of that blue coming through, but he's a deluxe figure. You can't hide everything. So that's Cheetor there. Now, final thoughts. Robot mode. Unfortunate about the weapon choice, but it is what it is. As I mentioned before, third-party kit will give you his traditional weapon that he uses. Also unfortunate that this weapon that he is given, he can definitely hold, but can't be stowed away elsewhere. That has some level of convenience, so it's a minor criticism, but it's unfortunate, especially given that a lot of the other beast mode figures have some degree of weapon storage in their robot mode. Colors are pretty good. Articulation, I think I'll have to say the shoulders here are interesting because of just part of his transformer design. It's not terrible, but it does reduce some of the articulation he has. Likewise, the beast mode back legs folding in over the front of his lower legs just makes doing some, not so much the traditional knee bend, but the forward knee bend a little bit weird. But at the same time, I don't think knees are really supposed to do that either, so it's not necessarily a bad thing either. But otherwise, his robot mode is quite solid. I'm definitely not going to try and compare him to his Masterpiece figure because that's well and truly two different scales. It's definitely a step up from his... Well, actually, looks-wise, it's a step up from his 90s toy. I never had his 90s toy until well after it was reissued and re-released through anniversary lines and things like that, so I can't confirm the full articulation, but I feel that the 90s toy might have had a bit more articulation in some areas than the current one. But still overall, as a modernized take, it's still pretty good. So that was his robot mode. His beast mode, I think, has actually fared a lot better than his robot mode. Everything looks generally neat and tidy for the beast mode. I did mention we do have some tabbing here, which is good. Unfortunate his feet don't fully get hidden, but that's okay. Similar with some of that blue from the robot mode coming through into his back legs. Does look a little weird, but Deluxe, what can you do? Otherwise, I think they've actually done quite well on giving Cheetor his beast mode here as well. A little bit of articulation and movement, which is really good. So I definitely say overall his beast mode I think has fared a little bit better. It's not without its faults, but I actually quite like it. And I never did actually own the original Cheetor toy back in the 90s, so it's actually nice to have one now. In fact, I've caught up a little bit because of reissues. But yeah, I'm actually quite like this incarnation of Cheetor. Would I recommend Cheetor? If he's still somewhat available, I would still say yes. It's a good modern take of Cheetor, so anyone who's a big Cheetor fan will definitely want to grab one. Anyone who's a fan of the Maximals will probably want to fill out their collection with one. If you're a big fan of all things Beast Wars, you would probably want one. And if you're just a general Transformers collector, you'll probably actually want to get one. So of all the deluxes I've now looked at, so Cheetor's the first of the Maximal deluxes, but even comparing against the deluxes from the Predacon side, I think Cheetor probably still fares generally a lot better than Deluxe Scorponok. He has some good things about him, but I do feel Deluxe Scorponok is probably the low tier of the Deluxe Predacons, to which Cheetor would still rate higher than that. So overall, Cheetor has still done quite well as a Maximal Deluxe. So yes, if you can still find him, I would definitely say grab him if you haven't had the opportunity to get one, and if you're still umming and eyeing, or if you want an actual second one to actually open and play around with. So that is Cheetor. So that pretty much brings us to an end of the unboxing and review of Deluxe Class Cheetor, the second member of the Maximal team. Next week will still be a continuation of the Maximal team. I will probably be doing Air Razor to wrap up the Deluxes. Air Razor will be an interesting one because Pterosaur was a retool of Air Razor, so Air Razor could be a short video. We'll see how it goes. I'll also have an additional short of Cheetor on his own, and we'll get the shorts of the Maximal team going as well. So I'll have Cheetor and Rat Trap to have a quick short next week as well. Yes, because I won't have Air Razor done yet. I have no idea what I'm doing now. It's late for the point of me recording this. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this unboxing and review video. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found on my Instagram account, link below. Stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in a future video. See ya.